November 2021, Bitcoin record high 69,000. When does Bitcoin hit 69,000? Again.
Bitcoin's price continues to climb higher, consolidating near local highs.
Short-term price is almost impossible to predict. My guess is that we will see somewhere around there before the end of this year.
This year, okay.
Something like that.
And then when does it go to 100?
And with the halving near 60 days away, and the ETFs continuing to suck up all the supply.
I think that the halving is really this meaningful moment. And what we've seen historically is there's been 3 prior times where the halving occurs, and within 18 months, we have a new all-time high. Historically, though, when we've hit that halving, we haven't been at a new all-time high price yet. What we've been watching right now is these ETF flows are driving the price higher. We're now at $52,000. We were at $42,000 when the ETFs actually got approved. And so if this continues, there's a chance we could be near an all-time high. I don't know if we'll be at the all-time high, but we could be closer to an all-time high when the halving occurs, and that would be unprecedented.
And with Ethereum approaching 3K, still 38% down from its all-time high, while Gary Gensler was forced to approve a Bitcoin ETF.
Do you think he'll do the same thing and approve a spot Ether ETF?
I don't see that happening at the next time that he can do it, which is in Q2 of this year. I think eventually they're going to have to approve not only Bitcoin, not only Ether, but many of these. And it's just going to become, if you go back to the 90s, people used to talk about internet companies. Now we talk about companies. Same thing I think is going to happen here. People are just going to talk about these assets, and it's not going to be, oh, crypto, this weird thing in the corner. It's just going to be this mainstream thing. And so they'll all get ETFs.
But play this out for me. Many people are starting to get their heads around Bitcoin. We can understand Bitcoin, maybe Ether a little bit, but Solana, Dogecoin. I mean, how many ETFs could there potentially be? I mean, if you do for one, do you have to do for all? Or if you do for 2, let's say he gives a thumbs up to Ether, what about all the others?
Well, I think there's 5,535 ETF launches before the Bitcoin ETFs occurred, if I remember that number correctly. And so there could be thousands of ETFs out there.
Wow.
And when you see even just like SPY, right? There's SPY, there's levered SPY, there's the inverse SPY. There's all these things that you can do to actually get ETFs around a single asset. And so I think that's coming both for Bitcoin, but I think a lot of these assets are going to have ETFs in the future.
And let's talk about Injective. Let's talk about ETH L2s and what's next for XRP.
So you would welcome an XRP ETF then?
The CEO of Ripple shares the latest today.
When do you think that this will finally no longer be an overhang for you guys? You're one of many companies that are fighting the SEC at this point in time, but when can you call this an all clear? And do you think that this will make it so far as to reach higher courts?
Well, hard to predict whether it's going to reach higher courts. On everything we cared about, we won against the SEC. Will the SEC appeal and move it up the courts? We'll see. They sought approval to do what's called an interlocutory appeal. The courts denied that also. The case against me personally and Chris Larson personally was dismissed entirely with prejudice. So, look, from my point of view, the SEC has lost consistently. They lost the Grayscale case. I think if you're following the Coinbase case, the tone from the judge is, I think, pretty skeptical about some of the SEC's arguments. It stops, I think, when the SEC either realizes they're losing consistently, or you have Congress lean in and write new legislation.
And big news for lower cap altcoins, but if not, an Ethereum ETF potentially next.
I'm sure you've seen there's buzz out there about potentially an XRP ETF being in the future. What do you make of that speculation?
I think it only makes sense. There will be other ETFs. It's a little like, the earliest days of the stock market. You don't really want exposure to one stock or one company. You want to typically think about diversifying risk and what have you. And so I think we will see other ETFs. When we will see them is hard to predict. The sad reality of what we saw with the Bitcoin ETF is it was only because the courts forced the SEC's hand, and really Chair Gensler's hand, that we saw that finally come to fruition. And look, in my opinion, it makes these markets safer. It makes them more robust.
So you would welcome an XRP ETF then?
We would certainly welcome it, and I think it's inevitable that there'll be, multiple ETFs around different.
And has Ripple been in talks with BlackRock?
Given there's so much excitement around the ETF dynamic here, are you in talks with the largest issuers, particularly BlackRock, to get this done?
Well, I'm not going to comment on that. I know BlackRock has said some things publicly. We think it makes sense for the XRP community overall. Ripple obviously is a very important stakeholder in the XRP ecosystem, but we're not the only player. And look, we've seen, before the SEC lawsuit, XRP was the second most valuable digital asset. I think because of the headwinds of that lawsuit, we've now seen that largely abate. But the long-term view on these things is about, how do you create utility and really solve real-world problems with these different digital assets? Bitcoin's doing that very well as a store of value. XRP and its dynamics around being very fast, very efficient, and low cost on a per transaction basis makes it ideal for payments. And that's where Ripple really has leaned into as a company.
And Injective and Solana collab. The first ever omni-chain domain name service has officially launched, enhancing the user experience across Solana and Injective. And how this affects you is you can use and build dApps across both Solana and Injective using the same domain, unifying the two ecosystems. So users can utilize Injective in order to attain .sol domains and .sol domains onto Injective as well. Solana's most popular wallet is also integrated into both. And building a cross-chain name service is an unprecedented innovation in the blockchain space. Also big news for ETH Layer 2 Cody. Cody Network delivering garbled circuitry first mentioned by Vitalik back on Hacker Moon. So big technical achievement, and just as a reminder, Cody is a privacy-centric Ethereum L2, and as they describe themselves, it's a new technology that's 10 times faster and lighter than ZK solutions. And the news today is this: garbled circuits on the blockchain for the very first time.
I'm going to perform some quick demo of our MPC protocol that is based on garbling.
So they've achieved a breakthrough in blockchain encryption, and according to them, our breakthrough results in 1,000x faster computation, 100x lower latency compared to current solutions, and 250 times smaller storage requirements than FHE. They've actually just published a pretty technical demo.
Now I just want to mention this is the first time that an MPC is actually...
But like always, I'll continue to keep you updated, and I'll link that full demo down below if you want to check out. Also, famous DJ Steve Aoki comments on the NFT market.
Do you still have a lot of NFTs? I think you issued some NFTs, but the market is just like, it's kind of been obliterated.
Yeah, it's obliterated. There are like a small core of us that still believe that it's going to be part of the future. The NFTs and blockchain, first of all, it's a blockchain technology. I think it's something that is going to be underlying in the future. It's something you can't really, it's a great transaction service, a place where you can find a decentralized way to do transactions, and it's secured on the blockchain. I do believe in that. I'm a believer of that.
And in a brand new Michael Saylor interview, a continuation from our video released yesterday, Michael Saylor confirms he's never selling, he's only buying, and Bitcoin is the exit strategy.
But let's talk about your existing holdings. As I mentioned in the intro, now worth around $10 billion. You have paper gains of about 70% or so, which a lot of people would like to see that sort of return. At any point, would you sell? When would it make sense to take profits there?
Well, I've famously said I'm going to be buying the top forever. Bitcoin is the exit strategy. It is the strongest asset. So what we see right now is that Bitcoin has just emerged as a $1 trillion asset class. And it's alongside names like Apple and Google and Microsoft. But the difference between Bitcoin and the Magnificent Seven is Bitcoin's an asset class. It's not a company. There's not enough room in the capital structure of those companies to hold $10 trillion or $100 trillion worth of capital. So Bitcoin's competing against gold, which is 10x what it is right now. It's competing against the S&P index. It's competing against real estate, a $100 trillion plus asset class, as a store of value. So we believe capital is going to keep flowing from those asset classes into Bitcoin because Bitcoin is technically superior to those asset classes. And that being the case, there's just no reason to sell the winner to buy the losers.
And by the way, if you're looking for a great place to buy, sell, or trade cryptocurrency, check out partner of the channel Bybit and earn up to $30,000 in rewards for signing up and participating with referral code AltcoinDaily. Obviously, that is a tiered system, but link down below, check it out. And like always, see you tomorrow.